The USS Vanguard, a sleek and imposing warship of human design, drifted silently through the cold void of space. Its dark metallic hull gleamed in the distant light of a far-off star, almost as if it were a shadow among shadows. The ship's crew, a mix of experienced officers and elite soldiers, moved with precision and quiet focus. Captain Serena Whitaker stood at the helm, her sharp eyes scanning the coordinates displayed on the screen. She had led her crew through countless challenges, but this mission was unlike any other. Ahead of them lay the heart of the galactic, Empire's core, a region of space that even the bravest explorers hesitated to approach. This was the Forbidden Zone, where ancient relics and long-lost technologies remained hidden, shielded by years of silence and mystery. The humans, in their pursuit of knowledge and power, had found a way through. The USS Vanguard had come to seek answers, and Captain Whitaker knew this could be humanity's most pivotal moment. Far away in the Empire's capital, alarms began to blare in the darkened corridors of the Imperial Command Center. News of the human ship's appearance sent shockwaves through the bureaucracy, igniting panic across the Empire. How had they gotten this far? The Empire had watched humanity with a mix of scorn and indifference for decades, dismissing Earth as a young, reckless civilization with no real hope of threatening their vast, millennia-old dominion. Earth's technology, though impressive for its age, was primitive compared to the vast resources and knowledge the Empire possessed. No human fleet had ever ventured this deep into the Empire's space, let alone come close to the heart of their greatest secrets. Yet here it was, a ship capable of bending space itself, a marvel of engineering beyond anything the Empire had ever encountered. Whispers filled the command halls of the Empire's military. The ship's signature didn't match anything in their databases. The Empire's elite military analysts, who prided themselves on knowing every move made by any starfaring species, were left scrambling for answers. A dozen theories raced through their minds. Had the humans discovered some new technology of their own? Were they testing their strength, hoping to provoke a conflict? Or was this a desperate, misguided expedition by a species too arrogant for its own good? As panic spread, Fleet Commander Malros, a veteran officer with a reputation for swift, decisive action, was summoned to address the situation. He could feel the weight of the moment. No one had prepared for this. No one had expected humans to have a ship of this caliber, or worse, the audacity to venture so far into their domain. The Empire's first instinct was to strike, destroy the intruder before it could escalate. But even as Malros considered his options, doubt gnawed at him. The Vanguard had shown no signs of hostility. It had merely appeared, as if summoned, from the depths of the unknown. It was too soon to declare it a threat, but it was too late to ignore it. Meanwhile, on the USS Vanguard, Captain Whitaker stood before her crew, calm and composed, though the weight of the moment was not lost on her. She could feel the tension rise among her officers, each of them aware that this mission could either define humanity's future or be its undoing. But Whitaker wasn't afraid. She had been trained to handle pressure, and more importantly, she trusted her crew. As the ship neared the Forbidden Sector, the air grew thick with anticipation. The Vanguard was not just any ship. It was a symbol of humanity's ingenuity, the pinnacle of what Earth had achieved through sheer determination. And now, it was about to make its mark on the galaxy. Back in the Empire's war rooms, strategists pored over their maps and intelligence feeds. They were no longer debating how to destroy the intruder, but how to understand its purpose. What was this ship really after? The more they tried to make sense of it, the more questions arose. Why had the humans chosen this sector, one so deeply tied to the Empire's most guarded secrets? Was it by accident, or had they planned it all along? The answers remained just out of reach, like a tantalizing puzzle that the Empire was no closer to solving. As the Vanguard drew closer to the heart of the Empire, the fear in the Empire's capital grew. What was humanity's true goal? And More importantly, was the USS Vanguard the beginning of something much greater than they could have ever anticipated? The Empire had been blindsided, and now they were faced with a reality they had not been prepared for. Humanity was no longer the insignificant player they had once dismissed. With every passing moment, the tension between the two powers grew. On one side stood a centuries-old galactic empire, vast and powerful beyond measure. On the other, a fledgling human race, small in number but armed with a weapon they had yet to fully understand. The stage was set. The USS Vanguard had entered the heart of the Empire, and now the galaxy would hold its breath, wondering just how far humanity's ambition would take them. As the USS Vanguard glided closer to the heart of the Galactic Empire's territory, an unsettling sense of anticipation filled the air. Captain Serena Whitaker stood at the command console, her eyes sharp and focused on the holographic display in front of her. She knew the risk they were taking, stepping further into the Empire's core, where danger and uncertainty lurked at every turn. But this was the moment they had been preparing for. The Vanguard, built with Earth's most advanced technologies, was more than just a ship. It was humanity's statement to the galaxy, a declaration that they were no longer insignificant. As they neared the border of the Empire's most militarized sector, Whitaker's mind remained sharp, even as tension among the crew began to rise. What they didn't expect, though, was the sudden appearance of the Empire's blockade, a massive, defensive formation that would prevent any unauthorized ship from passing through. It was a wall of warships, lined up and waiting for the Vanguard. The crew on board the USS Vanguard exchanged uneasy glances. The blockade was formidable. Ships that outnumbered them, heavily armed and fully prepared to intercept anything that dared challenge their authority. Whitaker's first instinct was to take a defensive posture, but she wasn't the type to let fear dictate her moves. She was a strategist, trained to think beyond what others expected. With a calm command, she ordered her ship into a hyperspace, fold, an untested maneuver so close to a heavily populated sector that no other ship had ever dared try it. The engines hummed to life, and in an instant, the Vanguard folded space, slipping through the blockade like a shadow. The ships of the Empire, expecting a battle, were left confused and disoriented. The Vanguard had vanished. The Empire's fleet had no time to react, no time to anticipate such a bold, unexpected move. By the time they realized what had happened, the human warship was already beyond their grasp, safely hidden in the vastness of space. Inside the Empire's command center, the atmosphere shifted from confidence to panic. Fleet Admiral Malrose clenched his fists as he stared at the empty space where the Vanguard had been moments before. How had they done it? The Empire's greatest minds couldn't comprehend it. This wasn't supposed to happen. The blockade was impenetrable. No ship, let alone one from such a young species, should have been able to slip through their defenses. "What are they?" whispered one of the Empire's senior officers, unable to hide the fear creeping into their voice. A murmur of unease spread through the room. This wasn't just about a human ship anymore. This was something different, something that the Empire was not prepared for. The Vanguard had not only outmaneuvered them, but had done so with a precision and ease that seemed impossible. It was as if the human ship knew their every move before they made it. The Empire's leaders, once certain of their superiority, now found themselves questioning everything they thought they knew about humanity. They had always dismissed the humans as little more than a nuisance, their strength unproven. Yet here they were, demonstrating a level of technological prowess and tactical ingenuity that no one had anticipated. As the fleet scrambled to re-establish their position, another uncomfortable question began to surface. Is this ship alone? At the Empire's council table, the discussions turned frantic. Was this just a single ship, or was it part of something larger? What were the humans really after? Why hadn't they made any hostile moves? The more the Empire's leaders analyzed the situation, the more uneasy they became. Captain Whitaker had taken her ship into the heart of their territory without firing a single shot. There was no aggression, no demands. She had simply arrived. But that was perhaps the most unsettling part. What did she want? What was humanity planning? As the council debated, a deep, growing fear began to take hold of the Empire. Could humanity have developed something far beyond their understanding? Were they capable of more than just a clever trick? The Empire's once unwavering confidence faltered. This human warship was a puzzle, a piece they couldn't place, a threat they couldn't define. In a room full of seasoned military leaders and politicians, none of them could answer the most pressing question. Why had the humans come this far into their territory? The more they tried to contain the vanguard, the more they realized the humans were playing a different game. They weren't here to fight. They weren't here to negotiate. They were here for something else, and the Empire wasn't ready to face it. The Empire's leadership knew that this was no ordinary encounter. The appearance of the vanguard marked the beginning of something far bigger, something that would change the galaxy forever. As they scrambled to respond, one thing became clear. Humanity was no longer a minor player. The vanguard had come, and the Empire had underestimated the depth of what Earth's people were truly capable of. The USS Vanguard glided silently through the dark expanse of space, its sleek hull cutting through the void with unsettling precision. Captain Serena Whitaker stood at the helm, her eyes locked on the holographic map in front of her, focusing on the coordinates that would lead them to the heart of the galaxy's greatest mystery, the Hallowed Zone. This region was unlike any other. For eons, the Galactic Empire had kept it hidden, a forbidden area known only to the highest echelons of power. Legends spoke of ancient technology buried deep within the zone, relics of a civilization far more advanced than anything the Empire had ever seen. These secrets were so dangerous that the Empire had taken every precaution to keep them hidden, fearing the consequences of disturbing the long-dormant power that lay within. But for Captain Whitaker and her crew, this was no accident. They weren't simply drifting through the galaxy. They had come here for a reason. A centuries-old Earth artifact, uncovered by human archaeologists, had led them to the discovery of the Hallowed Zone. This artifact, a relic from a long-lost human civilization, contained cryptic data that pointed to the existence of technologies hidden within this sector. Technologies so powerful that they could potentially shift the balance of power in the galaxy. To humanity, it was an opportunity to level the playing field, to stand on equal footing with the Empire, who had long considered themselves the undisputed rulers of the stars. However, as Whitaker guided the vanguard through the dense nebula that surrounded the Hallowed Zone, a disturbing thought nagged at her mind. What if the Empire already knew about the technology here? What if they had been watching Earth for centuries, ensuring that humanity never found its way to this forbidden sector? As the ship neared the heart of the zone, it became clear that this was more than just a search for power. It was a race against time. The Empire's fleet, though vast and formidable, was not the only force that had kept an eye on this region. There were other eyes in the dark, other hands at work, ensuring that this knowledge stayed locked away. Despite the uncertainty, the Vanguard continued its course, its advanced engines humming softly as it navigated through the swirling, ghostly remnants of the ancient zone. The crew moved with a quiet determination, knowing that every moment spent in this space brought them closer to uncovering the unknown. The ship's scanners began to pick up strange signals deep within the dense fog of the zone. The data was fragmented, almost as if the very fabric of space itself was trying to keep them from discovering the truth. Whitaker's eyes narrowed as she studied the readings. The technology here was unlike anything Earth had ever encountered. If the Empire ever got their hands on it, they would become unstoppable. The Vanguard finally emerged from the nebula, and there it was, looming before them half hidden in the vast expanse. A colossal structure, ancient and majestic, stood suspended in space. It was a relic of a time long past, far older than anything the Empire had ever found. The structure pulsed with an eerie light, as if the very core of it was alive. Whitaker's breath caught in her throat. This was the key to everything, the power to change the galaxy forever. As they approached the central relic, Whitaker's mind raced. She had come here to find the technology, yes, but there was more at stake now. The Empire had already been monitoring Earth, quietly ensuring humanity never gained access to the hallowed zone. But humanity wasn't here to claim this power for themselves. They weren't here to conquer or dominate. They had come to prevent the Empire from taking control of it. The truth was, Captain Whitaker and her crew weren't the only ones interested in the ancient technology within the hallowed zone. The Empire would stop at nothing to seize it for themselves, to use its power to crush any opposition and solidify their reign across the stars. As Whitaker and her team prepared to approach the central relic, she couldn't shake the realization that the real mission was only beginning. The Vanguard had already demonstrated humanity's ability to outthink and outmaneuver the Empire. But now it was time to protect the future of their people. She turned to her crew, her voice steady but filled with determination. "We're not here to claim power. We're here to make sure it stays hidden, locked away, where it belongs." The silence that followed was heavy, but the crew knew the stakes. Humanity had discovered the secret the Empire had tried so hard to keep buried, and now they had to make sure it didn't fall into the wrong hands. The Vanguard wasn't just a ship anymore. It was the line between a galaxy under the Empire's iron grip and a future where humanity could stand on its own, free from oppression and fear. The Empire, stunned by the human warship's audacity and resourcefulness, knew it could no longer afford to wait. Fleet Admiral Lothar, one of the Empire's most seasoned military minds, was summoned to handle the escalating situation. He had dealt with countless threats in his long career, but none like this. The humans had proven far more capable than anyone had ever anticipated. Their ship, the USS Vanguard, had slipped past the Empire's blockade with ease, and now it was deep within the hallowed zone, an area the Empire had kept secret for millennia. The thought of allowing a human vessel to gain access to the ancient technology hidden there was intolerable. The stakes had shifted. No longer was this simply about protecting the Empire's borders. It was now about preventing humanity from unlocking power that could threaten their supremacy across the stars. Admiral Lothar, confident in his fleet's superiority, prepared for a full-scale assault. The Empire's military forces vastly outnumbered the human ship, and their firepower was unmatched. Lothar expected a quick victory, an overwhelming strike that would crush the Vanguard in moments. But the Empire had miscalculated. They had underestimated not just the human ship's capabilities, but the humans themselves. Captain Whitaker, a woman who had risen through the ranks with unparalleled strategic brilliance, wasn't the type to engage in direct confrontation when she could outsmart her enemies. As the Empire's fleet closed in, Captain Whitaker issued a calm, calculated order to her crew. They weren't going to face the Empire head-on. Instead, they were going to use the Empire's arrogance against them. The Vanguard's advanced technology, combined with the ingenuity of Earth's finest minds, offered them tools the Empire never considered. Holographic decoys flickered to life, mimicking the Vanguard's signature and scattering throughout the sector, confusing the Empire's sensors. The Vanguard itself, cloaked in near invisibility, darted from one location to another, exploiting every weak spot in the Empire's strategy. The Empire's fleet, expecting a simple engagement, fell into disarray. Lothar's ships fired on the decoys, wasting precious time and energy. Meanwhile, Vanguard moved swiftly, striking from unexpected angles, using electromagnetic disruptions to cripple the Empire's targeting systems. At one point, the human ship disappeared entirely from their radar, only to reappear moments later, in a completely different part of the sector, leaving the Imperial ships floundering in confusion. The Empire's command center erupted into chaos as their fleet scrambled to regroup, trying to counter maneuvers they had never anticipated. The cleverness of the humans was undeniable, and it sent a shockwave of realization through the Empire's leadership. They had assumed that sheer strength would win the day, but the humans were showing them a new kind of warfare, one based not on brute force, but on agility, misdirection, and precision. As the vanguard continued to outmaneuver their fleet, it became clear that the tide of this conflict was turning. While the Empire's fleet was embroiled in confusion, Captain Whitaker's crew remained focused on their true objective: unlocking the secrets of the ancient technology hidden within the hallowed zone. The human crew worked tirelessly, bypassing the cryptic barriers and unlocking the relics that had lain dormant for centuries. Each discovery revealed something more extraordinary than the last: alien technology that defied everything the Empire thought they knew about advanced science. Even the most seasoned Imperial scientists would be at a loss to understand the sheer potential of what the humans were uncovering. The Vanguard's ability to adapt in the face of overwhelming force left the Empire struggling to keep up. Their might was useless against the human ship's swift maneuvers, and each time they thought they had gained the upper hand, the Vanguard slipped away, evading their grasp with almost supernatural ease. Meanwhile, the humans had no intention of using the newfound technology for conquest. Their mission was clear: prevent the Empire from using it to further tighten their grip on the galaxy. They understood the consequences of the Empire getting their hands on this ancient power. If the Empire was allowed to exploit it, no one would stand a chance against their domination. Captain Whitaker knew they were on the verge of something momentous. The battle was not over yet, but with each passing moment, the Vanguard was getting closer to unlocking the key to defeating the Empire, not through brute force, but through knowledge. The Empire had always relied on its power and numbers to intimidate, but the humans had a different weapon: intelligence. And it was proving to be a far more dangerous force than the Empire had ever realized. As the cat-and-mouse game continued, the humans were one step ahead, and with every clever move, they inched closer to ensuring that the power of the hallowed zone would remain out of the Empire's grasp. The future of the galaxy was being written, and the humans were proving that they could be the ones to decide its course. The final chapter of the conflict unfolded within the heart of the hallowed zone, where the relics of a long-dead civilization pulsed with unimaginable power. Captain Serena Whitaker stood on the command deck of the USS Vanguard, her gaze fixed on the ancient structures that loomed before them, glowing with an eerie light. The Empire's fleet, though battered and confused from their earlier encounters, had not yet given up. They were closing in, but Whitaker knew something the Empire didn't. She knew that humanity's future wasn't just in the weapons they had at their disposal, but in their ability to think, to adapt, and to surprise. And now, as the final confrontation loomed, she was prepared to make a decision that would change everything. Rather than continue a drawn-out, costly battle, Whitaker chose a bold course of action, one that would test everything she believed humanity stood for. With a steady hand, she opened a channel to the Empire's leadership. The silence that followed was thick with anticipation. She didn't speak of war. She didn't speak of surrender. Instead, she offered them something no one would have expected: a choice. "Empire," she began, her voice calm yet unwavering. "You have seen what humanity is capable of. You know we are not your equals in size or firepower, but we are equals in will. I offer you access to the technology of this zone. In exchange, you will leave humanity in peace, cease your oppression, and allow us to thrive." There was a pause, as if the very concept of a human daring to make such an offer was too much for the Empire to process. Captain Whitaker's words echoed across the galaxy, and in the Empire's command center, Fleet Admiral Lothar could hardly believe what he was hearing. For centuries, they had ruled with an iron fist, and now this small, young species was daring to not only challenge them, but offer them a deal? The audacity was unfathomable. The Empire's leadership scrambled to react, but the hesitation among the high command was palpable. They knew that accepting such an offer would mean giving up their centuries-long dominance over the galaxy. But refusing it, risking conflict with a force they still barely understood, was just as dangerous. As the debate within the Empire's ranks raged on, Captain Whitaker watched with quiet resolve. She knew they were stalling, unsure of how to proceed, and she couldn't afford to wait much longer. It was time to take the next step. With a swift command, she activated the Vanguard's most secretive and most powerful feature, its ability to manipulate space-time itself. The crew braced as the ship's systems hummed to life, the air around them crackling with energy. In an instant, the Vanguard shifted dimensions, vanishing from the Empire's radar as the ship slipped into a parallel universe. The stars outside, the window twisted and stretched as the laws of physics bent to the will of humanity's technology. The Empire's fleet, unable to follow, was left staring into an empty sector. The gamble had been made. The humans had taken their shot, and there was no turning back. The Vanguard had crossed into a parallel reality, one where the Empire could no longer reach them. This was humanity's last and final act. They were not retreating. They were not surrendering. They were simply remaking the rules of engagement. And in doing so, they had shown the Empire just how much more they were capable of than anyone had ever suspected. The Empire, left in stunned silence, could only watch as the human warship, once a small speck on their radar, disappeared into the unknown. For the first time in centuries, the Empire was unsure. Their once unshakable confidence had shattered. Their understanding of what was possible had been upended. Humanity, a species they had always underestimated, had just revealed a power they couldn't even begin to fathom. As the Vanguard slipped back into hyperspace, Captain Whitaker looked out over the empty void, knowing that this was just the beginning. The questions lingered. Why had the humans come here? What would they do next? The galaxy, once dominated by the Empire, had just been altered forever. Humanity's place in the stars was no longer something to be dismissed. They had proven that they were capable of things far beyond what the Empire had ever imagined. And as the Vanguard vanished into the depths of space, one truth was undeniable. Humanity had arrived. And the Empire, for all its power, had just learned that they would never again be able to ignore them. The story ended not with a roar of battle, but with the eerie silence of space, and the whisper of a galaxy now watching humanity, waiting to see what they would do next.